is. And in a way, we've described that as a bit like throwing a boomerang. You kind of like, you set the car off, it disappears, and you expect it to come back to you. Here, we have to wait for someone at the top of the hill to say, run complete. So, yeah, it's interesting. Doing point-to-point racing is very different to circuit racing.
It's looking at the straw bales, it's sonar, it's almost like a bat flying around at night. It doesn't hit a house or a tree.
Yeah, it's exactly the same navigation principles. You're sending out a signal, and then you're receiving that signal back to work out the distance to all of those objects that are around you. Then you build up that as a map, and you try and identify, well, what are those objects, and should I be concerned about the object?
That's obviously going into a massive computer in there. That must be pretty big with terabytes of data and such like.
So we work with NVIDIA as a partner, who are famous for sort of gaming GPUs. So, but they say this is about 168 laptops, effectively, is what we're carrying in this car in terms of compute power.
And then that sends a message to the motors. How many motors? Where are they? What kind of power have you got?
Yeah, so we're fully electric, independent four-wheel drive, and a 63 kilowatt-hour battery we've got in the car. So we're generating, as you said yesterday, over like 500 horsepower in the vehicle. We've derated that for this event, and we run at a maximum speed of 120, just to ensure a clean run from top to bottom.
That's 120 kilometers an hour, so it's knocking on 75, nearly 80 miles an hour. It looked to me when you came up yesterday, you were hitting that very easily.
Yeah, no, we hit that very easily. Then it's maintaining the stability. That's the most important thing here today, to do the showcase. We're building trust in these systems, and it's really important to showcase that to the public.
Yes, yeah, and the maximum speed of this car?
It's rated at over 200 miles an hour.
200 miles an hour. That's
we won't be
quick.
doing that here.
Yeah, and you know, it was designed with CFD and aerodynamics. We can see that.
Yeah, we were at the Williams wind tunnel. We used tunnel 1 at Williams to help do all the aerodynamics. It's all underfloor, so it all comes from the diffuser. So that's why there's no wings on the top, and that's why the car has an incredibly low profile.
Because there's no driver.
No driver and no wings. Yeah, and that was one of the big challenges. So Daniel Simon, a futuristic film designer from Tron Legacy and Oblivion, he was the guy that designed this car.
And the weight of the car is what?
The weight of the car is around a ton. Most of that is in the battery and in the cooling for the battery.
And so you've got your operation based in Banbury, you know, the Silicon Valley of motorsport worldwide, let alone the UK. Somebody does the carbon fiber for you. You use the local suppliers locally in the UK?
Yeah, we use local suppliers. We also work with an Italian company who do the chassis, the carbon fiber chassis, but everything on the car is carbon fiber.
So then, the Robo Race car is coming to the line, and look at the history that we've got here. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway Yard of Bricks, the very first Indy 500 that took place in 1909. Those bricks were there that day, and here we are in 2018 with a driverless car that if you told those early pioneers of American motorsport this was going to happen, they would not have believed you. But here we are in the 21st century, and the Robo Race car has been given the all clear to start the 1.16 mile climb up Goodwood. I remind you, the car is looking with 5 major senses, with GPS, with sonar, etc., to feel its way up the hill. It's looking at the tarmac. There's grass. Don't need to go there.
Yeah.
Here's a corner. Need to turn right. It's on its way, Bryn.
Yeah, no, definitely. The most important thing here in Goodwood is to segment the tarmac from the grass, as you say. We train in Formula E tracks, which are concrete, and they have concrete barriers to the side, so it's much easier for us to navigate. You really rely on the cameras in this type of environment.
So because the bales are further apart and the bales aren't necessarily smooth, in inverted commas, like a barrier, that's another factor that's difficult here today.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of more of an organic environment that we're in, so things change as well when people have moved into the... Here we go, past the flint wall.
You're nervous.
Yeah, I was a little bit then when it went into the corner.
But it's working,
yeah, no,
Bryn.
It's fantastic to see.
And you guys, we were talking about this on the after show, the radio program on 87.7 yesterday. There's 8 days a week, essentially, that's gone into the work into this car over the last couple of years, and the pride has been repaid for Robo Race. Robo Race, as it gets to the top of the hill. That is quite something. I have learnt an enormous amount about autonomy and driverless cars through Robo Race, through Siemens with that 1965 Mustang that we saw earlier, about what technology is available and here and ready and for the future. Bryn Balcombe, thank you so very much. Give your Robo Race colleagues a huge pat on the back.
We will do. Thank you very much for the invite as well.
That's not at all. We look forward to seeing it on the racetracks of the world. Robo Race gets to the top. We return to the base of the hill, and we have the first of our sidecars lining up on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway yard of bricks. Barry Nutley, this is absolutely up your street.
Totally up my street. Ben and Tom Birchall, 2009 world champions, 2017 world champions on the 600. That is the World Championship outfit. LCR built by Lewis Kristen Racing. These boys not having the best season in 2018, but they are the reigning champions. Also, 8 TT wins, an absolutely dominant Isle of Man TT for Ben and Tom Birchall on the short outfit. This Yamaha powered, the short outfit they used in the TT is an LCR, but it's not a long wheelbase like that. It's something completely different. But carrying their familiar number 16, Ben and Tom Birchall will lead the parade. I've been reliably assured that sidecars will sort of punctuate, if you like, as we go through. So we get some idea of what's coming up next. After the sidecars, we're going to get the classics. There's going to be a car coming up, according to this. Then French sidecar, then modern race bikes. The Britain, the big V-twin Britain, will end the modern.
Well, I look forward to seeing that, because we haven't seen it move so far this weekend. An absolute work of genius with the Britain that is here this weekend.
Indeed. Then we're celebrating 30 years of World Superbikes following the Britain, and the flat trackers preceded by a World Championship winning... Yeah. Yes, Tom, we love you too.
Now, I was lucky enough to have a ride with none other than Steve Webster around Donington on one of these sidecars. It was a two-stroke that I went round with. That was another world, another experience. I loved every single minute of it. I'd do it again today, tomorrow, the next day. They're still immensely brave. I went on a showboat ride, but for a quick ride, it's another world.
Just look at the size of the platform. The passenger has to get down. He's basically on his knees, sideways on his knees, moving from right to left. That low section over the rear wheel, that is where Tom Birchall will be. And look at the slots down on the fairing. Those are the handholds in different positions. So if you want to get right over, he's at that furthest foremost handhold with a leg flailing in the air. You won't see any of that uphill climb, ladies and gentlemen, because, well, we have got one left-hander, we've got one, and we've got one right-hander, so we've got a bit of action. But Ben and Tom Birchall here, then they're at Brands Hatch next week, returning to the British Championship, where they're lying quite low down because they were away for the first round. Then the TT clashed with Snetterton, so they've missed quite a few rounds, but they're doing well.
600cc engine pushing out 120, 130 horsepower or so, but what does the outfit weigh?
Thereabouts. That's a really, really good point. It's not as heavy as a World Superbike. It's a monocoque aluminium construction. It's basically a monocoque car with one wheel removed. Lewis Kristen built Formula Fords and single-seater racing cars before he ventured into sidecar outfits, and these things go back to the 80s. The basic design of an LCR has not changed. The engine is light, as you say. It's 600cc, 6-speed. That's an R6 Yamaha in there, pushing out the sort of horsepower that you mentioned. Now, in world sidecar racing, the spec is open, so you can pretty much run what you like. That is a quick engine. It's 10 grand's worth of special kit on it to
all
make it go.
All day 10 grand.
Yeah, indeed, just to make it go. But we're waiting now for Ben and Tom to get that off the line. It is quick. In the UK at the moment, we're running 1000cc and 600s in the same race. Next year in Britain, everything goes 600, following the FIM guidelines, and that makes sense, Toby, because you can then encourage world riders to come and play in the British Championship and vice versa. And also the British Championship next year will be under the auspices of Motorsport Vision. So Stuart Higgs and his team have embraced the Sidecar Championship as a formal, integral part of a British Superbike weekend. He's also an FIM steward, so you can see a bit of dialogue about dovetailing dates, can't you?
Absolutely.
So there'll be no clashing there, you know, which is really, really good stuff.
Yes, I was, like yourself, I was lucky enough to commentate on the Sidecar Championship, 96, 97, maybe 98, 99. Forgive me, my memory fades a bit, but there were some races. Boy, oh boy, there were some races.
Yeah, it's good now that the sidecars are using manufacturer engines again. There was a way back in the 80s, 70s and 80s, there was a departure to use things like Koenigs, even Hillman Imps in the earlier days. The motorcycle industry said, sorry, buddy, you're not racing what we sell, so we're not going to support you in any way, shape or form. Waiting up then behind, Sammy Miller on one of his classics. Ben and Tom waiting for the off. That, you see the camera there mounted, that's a huge air duct that throws cooling air down into the motor.
Yeah, I mean, one of these 600cc engines, Barry, it'll be revving out at 15, 16,000 revs. That's a lot of air that it's digesting every second.
Indeed it will. It will gobble up into that big airbox. The airbox is a crucial part of any motorcycle, as you well know. Robo Race going for a little sleep in its shed, but what an achievement that is.
It is quite impressive. I mean, no matter what walk of motorsport you come from, it's quite impressive that it's made its way up, and not at 15 miles an hour, but at nearly 80 miles an hour, and it's going to reverse itself into the trailer at the top paddock to put itself to bed. There's obviously an element of programming involved, that it goes one way up the hill, it doesn't necessarily know its way back down the hill. But these are formative years, you know. Let's look at how the early motor cars were started and got developed in the world of motorsport, and then within a matter of years things like land speed record came along. You know, 1935 land speed record was tumbling, you know, 3 or 4 times a year. 300 miles an hour by Campbell in the 1930s. 30 years earlier the motor car could barely do 40 miles an hour, you know, and maybe that's the technology that we may see unravel. Now we're into the stride of the 21st century with autonomous driving and helping people on their journeys.
Well, I think it's the way it's got to go, and whether you're a fan of it or not, that's beside the point almost. I can see number 77 single overhead camshaft Norton of Ian Bain. Ian Bain with his moustache, his long ponytail. He has raced that. That thing is 1934, and he's won 10 classic race championships on that bike. Just amazing.
And hopefully he'll be coming to the Goodwood Revival in the second weekend in September. We look forward to seeing you at the Goodwood Revival in 2018. A show with a show with a show. Whichever corner you turn, there's something else you've never seen before. But the on-track action, as we know, Barry, for the motorcycles, particularly with Ian Bain, with Troy Corser, are just another level.
Well, John McGuinness and Glenn English won the Revival, the Barry Sheen Trophy, it's called, at Revival, and that was won by Glenn English and John McGuinness on a Manx Norton tuner prepared by Fred Walmsley, and that bike is here, and Fred Walmsley is riding it, the owner and tuner. But the bike nearest us, the BMW Rennsport Sammy Miller, that's an absolutely fantastic thing. But, you know, Robo Race has captured the imagination of everyone, hasn't it?
It absolutely has. As these guys are preparing, engines will be getting warm. I think they've been starting to be shown that it's visor down time, and they do that last little stretch with the leathers as the Birchall brothers prepare on the start line.
Here we go then. Ben will dump the clutch, he'll get the off, he'll dump the clutch, away he goes. He'll imagine this is a start line and go down to the right-hander, to which takes him to the approach in front of the house. There's Tom Birchall reaching over for that handhold. You can see there, he got it in there. There's a little bit of a flick. Now Tom, there's that flailing leg. He holds it right all the way around here, gets the power down. The thing is trying to go left all the time, because when you're dragging with that pendulum on the side, Tom there not really working the sidecar. He doesn't need to. It's not a left-hander to speak of, but he's well and truly out of the left-hander as they go around Molecombe, away up the hill. This is a very, very fast run indeed, and it's looking good for these guys. Not for nothing with a 2017 World Championship. By the flip wall, margin on the wall, Tom, as you pop out. Really, really good run.
You can see the knee slider on his backside, because when he goes through the left-hander, he's leaning out so much. He's got the sacrificial knee slider. It's touching the ground as he goes through the top left-hander and over the line. Brilliant stuff.
Great stuff. Great stuff. They'll be at Brands Hatch next weekend, doing their best to claw some valuable points in the British Championship. That is Oh, that's Fred Walmsley on the Max Norton Fredder. So he built that as a semi-chopper. It's a rigid bike. That's the guy who's prepared G50s and Max Nortons over the years for so many. There is Fast Freddie Spencer. Fast Freddie Spencer on the 1985 RS 500 GP bike. That's the triple. The RS being the production bike that Honda produced for privateers and smaller teams. The NS, of course, being the full works kit. But this bike has won world championships. And Freddie Spencer, I was talking to him in the Drivers Club just earlier, just before they came on track. An absolutely lovely bloke, and he loves that bike. He said it's great to be reunited with it. Steve Parrish on the number 34, the familiar Lucky Strike RGV 500 Suzuki, owned by Gary Taylor, who was for so many years Suzuki's team manager in Grand Prix. Stavros, for obvious reasons, has a special relationship with Gary Taylor because he's been in charge of that Suzuki team for so long. Number 54, Kawasaki GP 750, GPZ 750, Mick Godfrey on board. And you can just see, it's unfamiliar there, the great Giacomo Agostini. What an amazing man. This is the MV3, the 500 MV3, which is basically a bored-out version of the 350. And Agostini won 7 world titles back-to-back on that machine. An incredible character. His charisma goes to depths I have never plumbed, and he's still got it.
Absolutely, yeah, Barry. You only know charisma when you meet it. This is the man who's won the most ever Grand Prix World Championship races. Here we now have the very first man to beat 130 miles an hour around the Isle of Man TT course. It is none other than John McGuinness.
23 Isle of Man TT victories, has taken the best part of this year out with a very, very badly damaged right leg as a result of a crash on the Northwest 200 when riding the Honda Fireblade. It threw him over the wall at 146 miles an hour, and he was in a bit of a mess afterwards. But that's the SG7 Norton. This, the number 7, that's Duncan Fitchett on board that XR14 RG500. The RG500 Suzuki was evolved and built over 18 years, and for the whole of that period was virtually invincible. The number 53 bike, the Speed Triple RS. Now that's either Fogarty on board, it is Carl Fogarty. Gary Johnson is down to ride it as well. So King of the Jungle, Carl Fogarty, 4 times a world superbike champion. And Gary Johnson said he's better fixed off in the jungle than he is on a race bike these days. But that's for him. And Troy Corser on the BMW Classic S1000 RR, the likeable double world superbike champion, Troy Corser. And somebody said to me he slept in his leathers last night.
I'm sure he did. Is he going to do the knack-knack as he comes on the home straight? Well, this is the motorcycle that holds the outright circuit record at the Isle of Man, with Peter Hickman at 135.452 miles an hour. He did 37.73 miles in just 16 minutes and 42 seconds. That looks like...
That's the RC213V, that's the Paget's bike with Connor Cummins on board.
Yeah, that's the Grand Prix bike that they put the indicators on.
The lengthy, long-winded Connor Cummins, and he had that massive accident in 2010 in the TT.
Yeah, it was in the film. From the helicopter shot, terrifying shot, but it's great to see him here this weekend. This is another BMW.
And Sylvain Barrier. Sylvain Barrier on board on the Barry Baxter S1000 RR BMW. Street bike. 2018 brand new piece of kit. That's what you get if you hand over a whole load of money in the shop. The number 76 bike there, how good does that look? That is the Vinto SP1, the Andy Caddick bike. It was put in that colours and built for John McGuinness. Toseland also raced an SP1 in the British Superbike Championship, and the Vinto team was run by Paul Bird. They put that in Vinto colours. John McGuinness rode it in the TT, and it's in the hands of Andy Caddick. Loris Caparossi replica GP5, hence the number 65 on it. Ducati Grand Prix bike. I have to say, Toby, you were there at the time when Ducati went Grand Prix racing. I thought, no, not a chance. But
oh, they led the first race.
How wrong was it?
They led the first race.
How wrong was
That's
I?
Suzuka. Now this is right up your street because this is Niall Mackenzie's championship winning Cadbury's Boost Yamaha from '98. You were there.
Indeed, I did all three of his championships. I was commentating on BSB all the way through the 90s. Back-to-back championships for Neil Mackenzie.
That's Michael van der Mark.
It is.
Michael van der Mark, the double winner from Donington, the World Superbike race earlier this year. That's Randy Mamola being a hooligan as always at the top of the hill. And this is the aforementioned Briton.
Yeah, John Britton, the wonderful Kiwi, sadly no longer with us, evolved and built this bike, which was way, way ahead of its time.
Still is.
Still is. A fantastic piece of kit. And there are several of these bikes around the world in private hands. The Briton V1000, just look at that. What an incredible thing. Castrol livery for the World Superbike RC45, built and prepared in Louth at the Honda race shop. Great names like Aaron Slight, Colin Edwards, Carl Fogarty. Now we've got Sam Sunderland's KTM at the London Motorcycle Show last year. He rode this in to the show, the only Briton to win the Dakar Rally, and KTM have had 17 Dakar victories. That is absolutely impressive and would make one certain Japanese manufacturer eat its heart out.
Oh, yeah, and they are the reigning champions on the Dakar Rally with an Austrian, Matthias Walkner, who won this year. Sam Sunderland, the only Brit to win the Dakar Rally on two wheels, as we now go to the reigning Speedway World Champion.
Yeah, we do. Jason Doyle, 2017 World Speedway Champion. Speedway bike is not really accustomed to going up a hill climb, but what a controlled wheelie we've got there. And now we're into flat trackers. These guys really go. The Indian FTR 750, a 2018 bike. These are built brand new so that KTM, Indian, I beg your pardon, that's Chad Coates on board, have some chance of holding their own. Number 52, the Husqvarna with Shayna Texter on board.
A family of flat trackers from the Texter squad. Brian Smith is here, Jared Mees. We just saw Brad the Bullet Baker. And they are taking to the absolute dirt track here at Goodwood as they get it sideways. You must go and see these guys race in America. That is where King Kenny Roberts cut his teeth. So did Wayne Rainey, Randy Mamola, Freddie Spencer,
Indeed.
Nicky Hayden. Where I've been to the Indianapolis Mile, it is just another world.
Talking to Freddie Spencer earlier, you know, I know Freddie very well and I know where he started. He said, when I really started, we were good old boys down in Louisiana who threw a bike in the back of a pickup truck and went off to a local showground where there was an oval, and we raced on the oval. Ian King's Puma drag bike, phenomenally quick. My information tells me that this thing can get to 100 miles an hour in under 2 seconds, which is staggering. But you will see from the way he's trying to negotiate the corner, it's got an enormously fat rear tyre. It doesn't go round bends. It's only good in a straight line.
I was just about to say, put your fingers in your ears, but everybody down there will not hear me. What did you say?
They weren't up here either.
It is absolutely deafening. A sound from, I don't know where. Just listen to this. Just look at it go. 0 to 100 miles an hour in 2 seconds.
Ian King, regular here at the Festival of Speed, because it's such an impressive thing. That rail sticking out the back, folks, is to stop it leaping over backwards. It's sticky, and sometimes they put a bit of Coca-Cola on it to soften it up and make it all sticky and gluey. And when it goes off the line, it could easily somersault. Now stunting with Matty Griffin on the BMW 800 Twin, which is the most suitable bike within the BMW range for the sort of antics he gets up to. You'll see he's got foot pegs on the front wheel spindle, foot pegs just behind the rear wheel spindle, and he makes that bike stand on its back wheel. He pirouettes it, he slides it, he does stoppies. And the young man from Galway on the west coast of Ireland, who performs all across Europe and does this sort of thing. Now just have a look.
Well, as Matty Griffin twirls around the start line marshals, we've got Bruce Jones at the top of the hill. Bruce?
I'm dazzled by the sunshine bouncing off John McGuinness' amazing silver suit. Great to have you here, and fantastic to have that amazing Norton you've come up on.
Yes, it's a special bike, you know. I look like a fat chicken in tinfoil, don't I? But Everybody's excited today. I mean, burnouts and all sorts going on, but yeah, fantastic. I missed it last year. I really did. Yeah,
We missed you.
Yeah. Was it? You know, that the injury was. I've been in a dark place for 12 months, but now I'm back out of it and got the leathers back on. And yeah, really super enjoyed my run up yesterday and today.
It's also great to have the fans here as well. You've been working hard on the autograph front. I know the people behind will want you back over again in a second to sign yet more. But it's just great to have you back in the pack. Look, they're all waving to you, John. Right, he's all yours. I'm going to move on up the hill. Thanks, John. And I'm just going to go up a very famous bike, of course, the Suzuki from the mid-70s. Barry Sheen, most famous on it, but a man who entertains us every year at the Revival and the members meeting, Duncan Fitchett. Great to have a bit of mix and match. A modern bike by your standards.
Exactly. It is a modern bike for me. So disc brakes, and it's Barry's 1975 bike, owned by Chris Riches now, who's kindly said, come along on Saturday and have a ride up the hill. So really privileged to do that, yeah.
And when you're up here, what else do you look at and go, oh, right, I'm now moving up the age. What else would I like to ride?
Well, I like the flat trackers, to be honest. I've been down and seen all the boys down there and got the poster signed for my little lad to put on his bedroom wall. So that's a bit special. But everywhere you look is all my heroes and all the bike boys. So it's brilliant. And to ride Barry's bike, when I was a boy, I was at Silverstone at the British Grand Prix climbing under the barbed wire to try and see Barry, and he always had time for you. And then he came back and rode with me and everyone in the Revival. So it was great. So great to ride his bike today.
That's what it's all about. Thanks very much, Duncan Fitchett. And back down to the commentary box, an awful lot more to follow.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, John, at the top of the hill. Yeah, the embarrassment of riches, Barry, of all the motorcycles here at Goodwood and at the top of the hill. Maybe they'll swap to ride them back down, back to the paddock.
I just absolutely love the enthusiasm of the guys. You know, and they're humble as well. You know, Duncan Fitchett there, he's no mean peddler, and he said, I'm up here with all my heroes. Now, how good is that? You know?
We're all kids in a candy shop. Barry Nutley, the voice of motorcycle racing that we all were brought up on. Thank you so very much. Look forward to seeing you back here later, my friend. That'll be fantastic. Right then, it's Billy Munger who leaves the line in the Carlin Formula 3 car, and he leaves the line with a great plume of smoke. He leaves an enormous, great big number 11 on the Goodwood tarmac as he leaves the line. Billy Munger, one of the sensational, heroic stories over the last 18 months, after that terrible accident at Donington. Here he is. He drove a Formula 1 car within the last month at Rockingham. He's in Formula 3, he's with Carlin, and he is going places. Every time, David Addison, you see him on the TV, on social media, in a magazine, here at Goodwood.
And he had a podium, third place at Alton Park on his first race after that dreadful accident. This car is a Tatius chassis, Cosworth engine. It is, of course, specially adapted. If you don't know the story about Billy Munger, he had this dreadful accident. He went unsighted into the back of a stationary car that had just had a spin at Donington last year. He lost both his legs in that accident, and within 12 months he's back racing, and a great reception for Billy as he makes his way up towards the top of the hill. He has bounced back to racing. He's done some broadcasting. He has had an extraordinary amount of support. He came from Ginetta Junior Racing into Formula 4. It was only his, fifth race in a single-seater when the accident befell him. And arguably for the wrong reasons, his profile has skyrocketed, but you cannot fault the man's bravery, and it's great that he's here making his Goodwood debut and revelling in being back behind the wheel of a racing car. Andrew Beaumont, who has a lovely collection of Lotuses, hence the Ronnie Peterson crash helmet to go with it. At the wheel of this Lotus 49, we're talking about all sorts of celebrations, Toby, this weekend, including the early days of sponsorship. And Colin Chapman, of course, went out and managed to persuade Gold Leaf that what you really wanted to do was spend money on my racing cars. And here is an example.
Yes, the very first international sponsorship. The purists thought, oh my goodness me, what's he doing?
Yes.
Why is it not green with a little white number on the side? But of course, that then was then born into a new celebration of sponsorship that we have here with Martini. 50 years of Martini sponsorship from 1968, but it was Gold Leaf that was the very first one. Here we are with a Marlboro BRM.
Because after Gold Leaf, we were up to different types of tobacco advertising. Barbara was a huge supporter of teams, of events, of drivers. Billy Munger has arrived at the top of the hill, and we'll, in a moment, be able to take off his crash helmet and compose himself at the end of that run. Beachy.
As he pops out to the car at the top of the hill, another brave run by Billy Munger. The Marlboro BRM, I remember seeing one of these go up a hill climb when I was a youngster. It's Rob Hall at the helm of the BRM as he gets to the top. Now that produces memories of Monaco and Beltoise.
That's right, he won in the wet, didn't he, after Jack Brabham had it off and Jean-Pierre Beltoise came through to win. But there's nothing quite like the sound of a Ferrari V12 and the 312B3, which is the car of Christian Nobloch. This car was the very car with which Niki Lauda won the 1974 Spanish Grand Prix. Ferrari had a couple of years in the doldrums. They'd tried to make different parts made in England long before John Barnard ever got involved with Ferrari, but going back 2 decades before, it didn't work. It all went back to Italy. Success picked up, but a great car. And I can still remember, indulge me for a minute, sitting at Paddock Hill Bend, Brands Hatch 1978. The Lotus 79s came round Paddock Hill Bend, Mario Andretti's championship winning year, and this is just a stunning car that did so much to change the sport.
And for me, my memories of 1978 were the first memories I had of watching, Murray Walker on the TV on a delayed broadcast. Grand Prix would be at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. I was allowed to stay up, but these two guys battling, I'd already got the bug.
And a word also for Andrew Marriott, because it wasn't just the BBC in those days. In 1978, there was still World of Sport. And so Andrew Marriott would do the ITV commentary. There's the famous It'll Be All Right on the Night piece, where he tried to interview Mario Andretti and that was at the Swedish Grand Prix, and the satellite link went down and it dragged on forever and ever. But yeah, those days, think about it, you had two broadcasters then showing the Grand Prix. Andrew did it for ITV and the BBC covered it as well. Here's a car from 76, John Watson's Penske, Doug Mockett the owner. And how about this, Toby? We now get so used to seeing turbocharged power in motorsport in general, but in 1977, when Renault came along with this car for Jean-Pierre Jabouille, it was something totally different.
It was from the moon at Silverstone, and then by the time we got to 1983, a turbocharged 1.5-litre car had gone on to win the Formula One World Championship. This is a Renault from that 1983 season. It was driven by Alain Prost in the day. It won Grand Prix, didn't quite take the championship. That was taken by the Brazilian Nelson Piquet for the second one of his 3 world championships. But now, as you say, David, turbocharging is everywhere. It has really got into its stride with the smaller capacity petrol engines that we have in the smaller cars nowadays. They are so efficient.
And of course, we've also seen in rally technology, you'll see it on the hill this weekend, turbo and supercharger in the same car, courtesy of Lancia. This, for me, was never one of the most attractive Ferraris, but it's still a standout car from 1984. There's just something about the shape of this. It's an aggressive shape for mine. I mean, Michele Alboreto, winner at Zolder in 1984, 2 years after Gilles Villeneuve was killed there in a Ferrari. And this Lotus starts the Ayrton Senna story, the type of car with which the great Brazilian won at Estoril in 1985 in the pouring rain.
That fantastic shot that you've seen of Peter Waugh throwing his hat into the air, Senna half out the car, belts undone with his arms absolutely aloft, and the beginning of the legend of Ayrton Senna. Then in 85-86, Alan Jones made a return. He got into the Beatrice Ford. That was a was that a straight 4 or the V6? I can't remember in the back of that.
It was a heart turbo, wasn't it?
So it was a straight 4.
Straight 4.
Turbocharged engine, and then by the time the era came to an end in 1988, they were pushing out 1,400 horsepower. But then into the normally aspirated era, this then was a Ford V8 in the back of this 92 car. Martin Brundle, who's here this weekend, was in the Benetton team with Michael Schumacher, racing this car around the world.
And on the podium at Silverstone. That's right, Michael Schumacher won at Spa with this car, his first Grand Prix win. There is Sir Jackie Stewart in the Lotus 25. Behind him is Paul Stewart in Sir Jackie's Tyrrell, so the ex-Jeep Clark Lotus, Andy Middlehurst's car. And with him is Paul Stewart, of course, and the two of them ran a Formula One team, and they're the Stewart family in tandem. And don't forget, this weekend, as Mark Stewart is at the back of the shot, so you've got both of Sir Jackie's two sons there going up the hill behind him. The appointed charity of the event this year is the Jim Clark Trust, and they're very, very proud Scotsman. Sir Jackie Stewart in the Lotus 25, a beautiful car. The two Tyrrells behind, a great reception from everybody all the way up the hill for this, and another of those amazing Goodwood moments. You get the Stewart family together in cars that encapsulates Sir Jackie's success and the success also of his fellow countrymen.
Jackie Stewart, Formula One world champion, 1969, 1971, 1973, won the championship in 73 and said, that's it, I'm not going to drive again. But a name that is not just a UK name, a worldwide motorsport name, not only then, still to this day.
Absolutely.
How proud must he be with his two sons following him up the hill with those two Tyrrells behind him.
And of course, remember, Paul was no mean racer himself. I mean, he was a Formula 3 race winner. He got to Formula 3000. He was instrumental in the success of Stewart Grand Prix, which of course morphed into Red Bull. But that was a team that won Grand Prix.
Remember when the Stewart Grand Prix car got on the podium at Monaco and that interview with James Allen with Jackie? You know, you must be emotional, Jackie. Yes, but I'm so proud for Paul. And that was the sign of the team effort that had gone in. Wonderful, wonderful to see them all here today.
Now you have Gilles de Ferran, the new sporting director of McLaren, in the Le Mans winning GT car, just going out of Molecombe Corner. You've also got Jeff Downs here on the hill. There is the McLaren. JJ Leto was the real hero of that 1995 race in pouring weather conditions. It was dreadfully wet at night, but JJ got in the car and just disappeared.
Masanorius Sakea, Yannick Dalmas, JJ Leto drove this car in the wet, as you say, and that is what a racing car should sound like. Gordon Murray's only regret from that weekend, didn't drive the cars there, didn't drive them back on the public highway. Did pretty well everywhere else, didn't he? Marc Genet goes up the hill with the Ferrari, the 312T, a 2.4-litre V8 normally aspirated engine, the bark and the scream and the howl of the previous generation of Formula One cars is now unleashed on the British countryside here at Goodwood in the south of England. The sun is shining, the sky is blue. I was going to say that the grass is green, it's brown, but the Ferraris are certainly, David, very red.
They are indeed. We've got Marc Genet driving the 312T. Giancarlo Casoli is in the one of the two F150s. And we have also got Tom Olislagers in another from Corsa Clienti. There is the 312T making its way up the hill. You'll also have in a moment two more contemporary Formula One cars here. Patrick Friesacher, you've seen him already in NASCAR technology. Remember, this is somebody that was a Grand Prix driver, did half a season for Minardi. Patrick Friesacher storming on up the hill in the Red Bull here. It makes an absolutely fantastic sound, this car. Of course, it screams its way up the hill. It was the car that Sebastian Vettel took to the championship in 2012, and now George Russell, the man who leads the Formula 2 championship in the Mercedes F1 W07. He's a Mercedes junior driver, and this is a man that's going to be on a Grand Prix grid before long. George Russell is a great British talent. He is a humble guy. He's very confident at the same time. Great talent, and the fact that Mercedes has picked him up could well be instrumental. If you think about the position on the grid of Mercedes, we've got another great talent here, Lando Norris, contracted to McLaren, but McLaren struggling a little bit in comparison to Mercedes. George could be in the box seat for his career.
The 2016 Mercedes Formula One car, it won 19 Grand Prix out of 21 a couple of years ago. Domination, not quite matching McLaren in 1988, but my goodness me, as good as. Now this was a black and gold Renault. It's now got some different livery on it, but it's Jack Aitken who's putting even more rubber down on the English tarmac here as he does a donut in front of the house. He's on his way further up. That's the kind of car that Kimi Raikkonen and Romain Grosjean drove back in 2012. Raikkonen going on to win that Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and that famous line on the radio, yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Jack This is another car that wrote itself into motorsport history.
The car is a 3-litre V10, the BMW engine mounted behind Karen Chandok, who is driving it here today. And this is a car that Juan Pablo Montoya set the absolute lap speed record around Monza. And the sounds and the power, 800, 900 horsepower. You know, you speak to Jenson Button, you speak to Montoya, you speak to the guys who drove these cars, and even now they go, oh, misty-eyed. The rose-tinted spectacles certainly do appear very quickly. They were amazing vehicles.
And they don't look out of place against today's technology. I know they look a little dated, but still, you wouldn't say, oh, that's from 2004, that's 14 years old. It doesn't look that dated, does it? I mean, that puts it in context. Now, how about this? Let's go somewhere different in motorsport. Let's go to Rallycross. This is Steve Harris in a car that in 1987 won the British Rallycross Championship. You know the story, I'm sure. After Group B, rallying had ceased to be because the cars were deemed too fast. All the Group B cars found a home in Rallycross. This was Mark Rennison's car from the British Rallycross Championship. The rear wing was given a few steroids, and after that, this was the car to beat.
I wondered where my garage door went. It's on the back of that Ford RS200. You can see the power as it accelerated out of Molecombe Corner, sat back on its haunches, whoomph, and a whoosh and a bang and a pop and a whistle, and it was gone.
Now, what about Toyota? It was never a Formula One winner. It took a long time to win at Le Mans as well, but Toyota did, of course, come and make this big effort into the sport. This is the TF105 with Harold Fuchs driving it as it heads up the hill, but everything should have been there for Toyota. It had the budget, it had the technology. It certainly didn't want for drivers either.
No, and it had essentially its own test track because they made their European testing base at Paul Ricard. They rolled it out of the workshop, down the ramp, and onto the Mistral straight. Yes, they put the money in. It had podiums, but alas, a victory was never quite there. But it sounds so good here today as it gets to the top of the hill where Bruce Jones is.
One steward is a big treat, but we've got all three up the top of the hill today. Jackie, good morning. Welcome to Goodwood. You fit that Lotus 25 very well indeed, sir.
Well, slowly, but very much enjoyed it because it was Jimmy's car. And of course we're great friends, raced together, played together, and Goodwood has an art of bringing everybody together.
Yeah, they do, and this year we got the sunshine, but it's always a big treat to have the Tyrrells on the hill as well, and it's so good you kept them in the family collection.
Yeah, I've never driven this hill fast, actually. I've always thought I'm here to demonstrate the car.
Well, it's great to see you here. Look, we've got some more stewards. There's Paul and Mark standing up high. So, Paul, you just come up in the 003, a car that means so much to the Tyrrell family.
It certainly does. Well, it means a lot to the Stewart family too. And my father gave me that a few years ago, and it's just such a privilege to drive it and and think of him when I drive it. And to be so close to him as well, coming up the hill, is also beautiful.
Yeah, and as your father said, obviously being in the Jim Clark Lotus, that is something very special. And then third in the line, in the newest of the Tyrrell line, the 006, of course, the car that brought that world title in 1973. Mark.
Lovely car to drive. It's a real privilege to be out here, to be behind my father, behind my brother, the three of us out here, and it's a family affair.
And again, just looking around the paddock, there's always a different mixture of cars here at Goodwood to enjoy.
Yeah, enormous, and that's the fantastic thing is when you get here, you get to meet new people or people that you don't get to see often, or people that my dad raced with or Paul raced with, or that we've been around for many years. So this is a terrific environment for us.
Well, it's a real tribute to have it here. So thank you very much to the Stewart family, and back down to the ads.
Saying. But this is the man who's really taken the Goodwood Festival of Speed by storm since 2014. It is Mad Mike Winnett. This is something else.
Yeah, Mad Mike Winnett. This is an FD-RX-7. What looks like an RX-3 nose was designed by him and Rocket Bunny. This is homage. And if you can't see it inside right now, check out on Instagram, #FOS. He's even running a vintage bubble face helmet. He just wanted to kind of go vintage, little retro, little homage, as this is the 25th celebration of Goodwood, the Jubilee. And Mad Mike, coming over here 4 years ago, really made a name for himself and made a name for drifting. That's why now we have 6 drifters here. Steve Bagzioni, want to see him out here. He drives an insane vehicle. Haven't seen it here just yet, but these drifters putting on a show. If you like what you see, feel free to tag away.
And for the Duke of Richmond, in the 25th anniversary year of the Goodwood Festival of Speed, has chosen Mike Winnett as one of the standout 25 moments of that Silver Jubilee.
Here comes Mad Mike. You see the thing, again, 4-rotor FD-RX-7, about 500 horsepower. This thing is ported. His wife Tony's watching at home, and again, we are coming back in August to UK, Liverpool specifically, Red Bull Drift Shifters, where pinball call them, these drift cars, where you basically hit sensors and elements. It's going to be on the waterfront, Liverpool. It's going to be exciting. But you can check out Mad Mike Odette. Obviously, all these guys are on social media.
Even got a Japanese plate on. Even got a Japanese plate on. Superb. They have the retro look to the crash helmet. Well, that's just an overload for the senses. But Bruce Jones is up there to receive these drivers at the top of the hill. Bruce?
Old school helmet, but certainly new school driving talent. Mad might win it. The entertainer, they give you a smaller and smaller area at the top in which to practice your craft.
Oh, I know, it's pretty tight up here, but there's nothing better than the whole way from the bottom to from the little scrub zone at the bottom, burnouts down there, all the way up. I found another intersection actually to do some more donuts for the fans, and then get up here and it's just like the atmosphere is just ridiculous.
But you know, just before interviewing you, I was talking to James Collado, races a Ferrari in GT, and his contemporary rivals just sit there with their jaws on the floor going, I want one of those for the road.
Oh yeah, it's just the coolest car. Like, this is the inspiration right here. The motor is the same as the 787B Le Mans car, which Mazda won Le Mans with in 1991. So we've replicated that motor and built that in hometown New Zealand. And this whole car, I mean, this thing has traveled the world literally with me. I put my name on the map as Mad Mike in the drifting community. And to be able to be up here at Goodwood celebrating 25 most memorable moments of Goodwood, and this being in the top 25, there was just no better car to bring up for the fans and have some fun.
Have some fun with the capital F. Mad Mike, as always, our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're down at the collection area, and many of you will recognise this man, Tom Christensen, 9-time Le Mans winner. Tom, you're driving lots of cars this weekend. What are you about to go up in?
About this is a Wanderer. Obviously, it's come here from Audi tradition. It's a car from 1938, Streamliner, and it has raced in Liège, Rome-Liège, average speed race back in those days, and obviously it has won. It's first time it's here at Goodwood, and I love to take it up.
I am amazed at how many firsts there are this year, cars that are arriving at the festival for the first time. But you're not just driving this, are you? You're driving a whole bunch of stuff. Tell us quickly.
Yeah, I mean, quick. It was iconic to drive the Stewart, Jackie Stewart's winning 1971, the Tyrrell Cosworth, the 003, up the hill yesterday. I mean, that's an iconic car from my childhood. And
you're not that old.
No, but I remember this car very much. I got the model cars, and obviously it's for motorsport. It's a great privilege to drive that. Drove the Alan Mann, the Escort, which is 50 years since Frank Gardner won the British Championship, the gold and red Escort Mark 1. Lovely sound of revving it up, and 9,500, and it's a lovely little beast. And then the AC Cobra Daytona from Lansante. I drove it as well this morning, so I've been very busy. I remember that the revival when it was really raining, completely different weather to now, and Kenny Bragg and me had a jolly good race there. So it has been be reunited with some and having the chance to drive some very, very legendary cars too.
I love your passion for Goodwood. You just love it, don't you?
I do. I do. I mean, even though the Brits don't really have a good sense of humor, but to be here and to be here now, it would have been great to watch the soccer final tomorrow. But all these things, to be here and what the Duke, former Lord Mars, he has created is absolutely amazing.
It is indeed, and we look forward to seeing you go up in this in just a minute. We're celebrating all things Pikes Peak at the Festival of Speed this year, and of course we've got the Volkswagen IDR, which broke the record, the electric record, and behind us now, that is an SUV record, the Bentley, and its driver Rhys Millen is with us now. Rhys, what an extraordinary thing you've just done. Just tell us about it.
It was an incredible year to partner with Bentley, my first time driving with them and experiencing the power of this vehicle and really the attributes to why it performs so well at Pikes Peak. This is a 6-litre twin-turbo W12 cylinder in the Bentayga, one of two engine options, but really the choice that gave us that record, smashing the record that was set by another manufacturer by 1 minute and 46 seconds.
That's monstrous. Now, you've been up Pikes Peak many times in your career. How did this compare to what you've done before?
Well, we can look under the hood here. You know, as I said, this is a production vehicle. stock tires, stock brakes, stock engine configuration. Literally the only items that you're allowed to add are safety enhancements, roll cage, and then safety for seats and harnesses and what the driver wears. So, you know, a true marketing program that really displays the performance, the power, and the handling of what the Bentayga represents.
And this is the actual... In fact, when did it even get back to the UK?
Well, the event was just 2.5 weeks ago, so it got transported to LA and then flown over here. Arrived on Wednesday, cleared customs Wednesday night, and I was in it Thursday morning for the first run.
Fantastic. Now look, final question from me is, going up Pikes Peak, you've done it something like 25 times. What's the secret to being quick?
You know, you have to have a good balance, and when I say that, you have to be confident. Obviously, I know where I'm going, but you extract everything that you can out of the machine. In most cases, I've driven vehicles that are half the weight with really grippy tires, so this was a real challenge for myself. But I drove the car on the street, experienced its performance, experienced its brakes, and we were ready come race day and set a time faster than what I predicted we would do.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic to have this car and Reese with us at the Festival of Speed.
Thank you, Tom. Toby Moody up here in the commentary position. We're just changing around some batches, and Chris Druitt has come to join me up here in the booth. Chris, I hope you are enjoying the day as much as everybody else is.
Hi, Toby. Yeah, it's a thrill, as always. And a little bit earlier this morning, I had a real thrill, which was to go down to FOS Aviation and share with Sean Welby some of the flying machines and lovely new airplanes down there. Let's have a look at that.
Well, this is a great little hidden place that you might miss if you're not careful, so make sure you cross both bridges and come down to check out the FOS Aviation area. It's fantastic here, Chris, isn't it?
It's wonderful, Sean. You've just had a flight in a helicopter.
Incredible. Honestly, it was brilliant.
Everybody should try it.
I totally agree. It was a lot smoother and not as scary as I thought.
Yeah, but look at this lovely executive airplane. Pilatus PC-12, single propeller turboprop, got everything on board that anyone could wish. In fact, should we go and have a look?
I think we should. Is this my first time in a proper private jet?
You tell me. If it's your first time, it's your first time.
But this is a private jet.
Well, it's a proper private turboprop. And we'll talk about the difference.
Okay, let's go and have a look.
Okay.
Come on, Chris. Well, I'll tell you what, Chris, I could get used to this, couldn't you?
It's luxury, isn't it? Fantastic.
It's so nice. I was going to say, it's not like your normal private jet, though, because we're saying it's propeller.
Yeah, this is the Pilatus PC-12, and you think, well, cruises at 280, 300 knots. Oh, wow, that's going to take a long time. But the difference is that with this, you can take off from a local grass field. With a bizjet, you've got to go to Southampton, you've got to go to Bournemouth. So door to door, this is just as quick, and it flies high enough to be above the weather. It's great. I love it.
How far can you go in this plane?
Well, a long way. You can get to all over Europe. In 3 hours, you could be down in Parma. 2 hours, you'll be in Nice. You wouldn't cross the Atlantic in it, but to all over Europe, Western, Eastern Europe, no problem at all.
It's a flying go-kart, are we right here?
It's a flying go-kart.
Okay, talk me through this, because all I can see is a big propeller on the back.
Yeah, well, first of all, you sit in behind the steering wheel. You've got usual car controls, but then extra controls for when you want to go flying.
Okay. I feel nervous thinking about this. And then this on the back.
Well, there's the propeller. And so, of course, you have to have a propeller to whiz you forward. There's the little engine, but it hasn't got wings.
No, but this is what I'm thinking, right? So I'm seeing a propeller. We're not seeing any sort of wings. How on earth is it getting off the ground?
What you do is you have a big suitcase, and you unpack your suitcase, and it's a great big parachute.
So you're telling me you have to drive this off a cliff to get going?
No. No, you clip on the parachute,
yes,
which trails behind you. You go whizzing down the runway, parachute inflates, and you go flying. How about that?
Seriously, the coolest thing I think I've ever seen. And people can just own one of these and buy them.
Yeah, yeah. I think you probably wouldn't drive it into London then try and take off down the Mall, but why not?
Oh, it would sort a lot of traffic out though, wouldn't it? You would be winning at the commute in the morning.
Yeah.
Chris, this is one of the coolest things I've seen. Definitely worth coming down for, isn't it?
It really is. Sean, you've just had a flight in a Jet Ranger, which for years has been the workhorse of the helicopter range. This is the new replacement. Bigger, better.
It's a bit of an upgrade, isn't it, this?
It really is. Beautiful leather seating for 4 passengers and pilot, much more modern technology. They call it FADEC, which means it's automatic control of the engine, big boot for your luggage, and only 1.2 million quid.
Oh, not bad. We could buy a couple of them, couldn't we, Chris?
Have you got your checkbook on you?
No, I've forgotten mine. Have you got yours?
No.
Do you know what I noticed about this, actually, is the windows are bigger. You can see really well out of that, can't you?
Yeah. And you can operate with single pilot, but 2 lots of controls, so pilot, co-pilot. Jet engine, of course, and just fabulous machine.
It's incredible. Do you know what I heard as well? That last night alone they sold 4 helicopters.
Really?
Yes.
There's Goodwood for you.
Get yourself down to Bonhams if you've got a spare 1.2 mil in the bank.
Yep, absolutely.
Here we are up on the rally stage. We go from a brand new helicopter to an ex-Russell Brooks Mark II Escort going around the course. We've got another Mark II Escort on the line, haven't we? Tony Jardine and Javier McCartan. Take it away. Tony Jardine is up there with Javier.
On the start line as one of a number of Mark II Escorts featuring on this year's booth.
Good afternoon and good morning, David. A great passenger ride about to take place. And as you say, WRC cars on here, every era. Wales Rally GB winner, and Will Trom is his passenger, and you can just see absolutely flying as he heads off the tarmac and through to the forest stage. Quite dusty, very chalky, and through Delta here, the hairpin at the bottom has been amended very slightly, in as much as that it's more of an acute hairpin now, with a barrel at the bottom making the driver's handbrake round there. But this is seeing a World Rally Championship driver at his very best. Elvin Evans, who's come through having won so many categories on his way up through rallying, WACR2 and British Rally Championship.
World Rally car. Mads is here for the weekend and is determined to do as many runs as possible. Katie Reid from Citroen doing a sterling work and making sure Mads is successful. There's a wonderful, wonderful shot, David, of Elvin Evans coming up to the finish line. And 2:32.6, I can tell you right now, that is the quickest time so far.
We've got a multiple world trial champion behind us, Dougie Lampkin, and he's about to do some crazy stunt where he drives on the roof of Goodwood House.
Oh my goodness, well I've seen a YouTube clip of him going up the staircase here, but I think he's taking it to another level now.
He literally is. Let's just hope nobody's told him it's Friday the 13th. Good luck, Dougie!
Trials champion is on the roof of Goodwood House here, and he does things that you cannot believe on these trials bikes, but there is absolutely no margin for error. No margin at all for Dougie Lampkin, as he's over the lead and inches away from tumbling down across the edge of the roof, down onto the grass lawn and the gravel below. And we're now going to have some free runners, and Dougie has got an unfortunate, if I could say that. Oh, now every time I've worked with Dougie Lampkin and I've had to be that person on the floor, you know he's not going to hit you, but you just have to close your eyes because you cannot believe that he's going to miss you. Dougie Lampkin, ladies and gentlemen, here at the Goodwood Festival of Speed for 2018. A genius on two wheels, a world leader in the trials world, and fabulous to see him riding around the Goodwood estate, whether or not it's on the roof of Goodwood House, even over the bridge, the spectator bridge, over towards the other side of the racetrack.
This is the Will Spencer entered car, the livery of Grease Lightning, the main sponsor of Three Styles Motorsport.
Here is Patrick Freisacker, and if you want to see smoke coming off the rear tyres, you're about to see it with the Red Bull Ring, the Spielberg-sponsored NASCAR, the home to the Austrian Formula 1 and MotoGP races, and Freisacker, normally he's got something in those rear tyres that it changes colour from white to blue to red smoke.
Let's see, in front of the house, Patrick Freisacker then lights up the tyres. And somewhere in all the tyre smoke, there's a car. Brilliant balance on the throttle and the brake, still smoking.
I think the smoke might be changing colour. Is it going a hint of red, or is it on our screen?
No, it's going a hint of red.
So he's taken the top layer off, and now it's down to red, and then he'll go to the lower layer, and it might be blue, and well, then he's on the carcass, isn't he? Here we go, red smoke coming off the rear of those tyres. Patrick Freisacker, ladies and gentlemen, hustling it round Malcolm.
And back onto the power then as he goes towards the finish line. And then Ed Berry, a Chevrolet Monte Carlo, should be the next one, but that might need a different driver, seeing that to the top of the hill now. So Patrick Freisacker then, still with the smoke coming out of the back. Powers on.
I thought we had the red arrows going over London a couple of days ago. I didn't realise they were coming to the Goodwood Festival of Speed, but great show. We look forward to seeing him again. And likewise, David, you know, these NASCARs are big motor cars. They're big vehicles. An hour before the British Formula 1 Grand Prix, and Nigel Mansell is here, or Lewis Hamilton is about to get into his Mercedes. Chris Druitt alongside me. It's like this every day since Thursday. We're only just gone beyond halfway.
I know. and everybody with a smile on their face. Everybody's got something to watch and get excited about, whether it's old cars, new cars, airplanes, rocket jetpack man. We're waiting for him. That's going to be sensational. We won't give away all the secrets, but don't miss Jetpack Man. 245.
Supercars, the very latest from all of the manufacturers. The Cartier Style Lux just towards the left-hand side of Goodwood House. There's also the supercar paddock, which is a little bit further over from the Cartier Style Lux on the lawn. I had a quick look through the Style Lux concours yesterday. There's the red McLaren F1, the early road car that was launched by Gordon Murray in the early to mid-90s. There is a beautiful Ferrari Daytona that is just time warp condition. There's a De Chevaux, there's a D-Type, there's things you've never even thought that manufacturers had could come up with. There's a complete eclectic mix of cars for their style, for what they did to the motoring industry, everything all in one.
We talk about electric cars and the development. We go back to the turn of the last century and electric cars from the 1900s.
Now this is a car that raced in 1950. It is the little 166 Barchetta Ferrari. This actual car finished 4th in the Mille Miglia. It finished 7th in the Targa Florio. It might have won the Targa Florio had the driver not had to stop for an hour or two on the side of the road, but it's Sally Mason-Stirran who is at the wheel, and Sally was part of the Goodwood Festival of Speed in 1993.
This was the first car on the hill in 1993, which is why it's given the privilege of being the first car in this batch. And Sally and her husband Dudley, great keen Ferrari owners. They've had all sorts of lovely Ferraris in their time. They've got a nice GT40 as well.
Sally saw this car first in the early 70s, and she just fell in love with it. It was then in Portugal at the time. It came to the UK for some engine work. Then it got sold to somebody in the UK in the 70s. And as I joked with her this morning, you must have kept a very long piece of wool on it so that you knew exactly where it was. The phone call came one day. She just had to have it, and it'll be with her forever.
It will. It's called Barchetta, which means little boat. The Italian description of a little open sports car. 2-litre V8 engine. So already, just about 2 years after the beginning of Ferrari, they had sophisticated engines, but now time travel takes us back to 1903. The first racing car, the Napier, to wear British racing green, owned and driven by Evan Lauwman. You must go to the Lauwman Museum in The Hague in the Netherlands. This is a very famous historic car, raced in the Gordon Bennett Cup, which was an annual event, sometimes in Northern Ireland, sometimes in France.
115 years ago, Chris, it did 82 miles an hour.
Yeah. We were talking about drivers who hop from one car to the other. This is almost the extreme. This is Rob Millen. Modern V8 driver, and his Darragh Grand Prix. They found this engine and have built up the Darragh racing car around it. Splendid. It's unlike the one that Mark Walker's got, the V8 land speed record car, but it's a big 4-cylinder engine. Actually, it's 2 banks of 3, I think, looking at the exhaust pipes. But way back, this takes us back to 1906. Just imagine 6 years earlier, you were lucky in a Benz dog cart to do 20 miles an hour, and here's something doing nearly 100 miles an hour.
And Darragh, formerly absolute land speed record holders.
Yes, indeed. Here's the 1908 Grand Prix Italia, raced in this country for a long time by Sam Clutton and others. But you could see in those days, when your Grand Prix car was obsolete, you put a touring body on it and went touring.
Italia, one of the many Italian motor manufacturers based around Turin. There were literally 50, 60, 70 of them all around Turin. You know, remember Fiat, Fabbricato Italiano Automobile Torino. That's what it stands for. So the base of the Italian motor industry was around Torino.
Here's a 1908 Grand Prix car again, the Mercedes, driven by Ben Collins with his courageous mechanic alongside whose job is to pump up the fuel pressure. You'll see her doing that as they come up to the start line. Once the wheels are turning, the fuel pump operates on its own. But if you see drivers in old cars or riding mechanics pumping, that's what they're doing. They're pumping up the fuel pressure.
Passenger head down as Ben flings it through the first right-hander. Ben Collins driving this car. He knows nothing else but speed and sideways and feel of these very early pioneering motor cars, very much part of the VSCC scene.
This car recently rebuilt, and Ben's been running it in around the roads in Wales. Actually took his children to school in it one day.
Excellent. Excellent.
And Ben's dad, who was president of VSCC, competed at Shelsley a couple of weeks ago in the early Benz, 1903 Benz, and broke his own record. Cotin et Degout, that's a rare name, isn't it? A rare manufacturer in the early part of the last century, and they built a hill climb car, and this is it. The GP Hill Climb, which won the Mont Ventoux hill climb in 1911 up a twisty mountain pass in France, southern France, up the Alps. We forget that we who do hill climbing in this country, we think the mile is long enough, but the hill climbs in Europe are much, much longer.
Yeah, Mont Ventoux, 13 and a bit miles it is in the middle of France for Ventoux, and it was also then a hill climb that was part of the Tour de France. This looks like Julian Mazoub, indeed it is, with the Sunbeam Indianapolis. He knows how to fling a car around, whatever it is underneath him. He specializes with these early pre-war cars, these vintage cars, and Mazoub, a very spectacular driver, flinging it into the left-hander. It's a 1916 car from Sunbeam.
Raced at Indianapolis, and if you were at the revival and the members meeting for the Edwardian race, Julian was a star there. That's a very rapid car. It's incredible, Toby, the development of the car in the first 20 years of the last century. From 15 miles an hour to 150.
Finished fourth at the Indianapolis race back in 1916, which was shortened from 500 miles to 300. Mazoub disappears over the top of the hill.
To reveal something even more extraordinary, this is the Voisin laboratory. Avion Voisin was an aircraft manufacturer. Gabriel Voisin was very keen on experimenting in aerodynamics, and he produced this extraordinary laboratoire to try out various forms of streamlining. People often ask, is that a propeller at the front that pulls it along? No, it operates the water pump. Just stunning. Peter Mullin, great collector, is the owner of this car. Philippe Butch is driving it. Came last year and had a bit of a whoopsie with one, I think, front wheel collapsed and had a puncture, went down to the local Quick Fit, got a new tyre for it. And Voisin also produced this amazing LSR, the Land Speed record car, the record car, which took no less than 18 world records in 1927. It's got two engines, well, two engines fore and aft, operating in line, as you can see from the exhaust pipes. Produces masses of power. In those days, 210 horsepower is a lot. A rapid car.
Took a total of 18 world land speed records back in 1927. It touched 129 miles an hour. And here we are in 2018, and Bloodhound SSC are here this weekend at Goodwood. Andy Green, Richard Noble, and all the crew from the Bloodhound squad looking to crack 1,000 miles an hour. The current land speed record, 763 miles an hour, faster than the speed of sound with thrust SSC. But as you mentioned, Christian, in these days, in the 20s and the 30s, I think in one of the years in the 30s, the land speed record went 3 times in a year.
Yeah. And imagine tyre technology. We could be blasé about driving this thing at 129 now, but imagine on those rough roads on relatively primitive tyres, they were brave guys.
And that's what was the limiting factor for Bluebird, for Campbell at Daytona. It was the tread flying off the tires. Those tires are still around. I've seen them. They were brave men and then some, as we now go to the Mercedes SSK, another 1927 car. Philip Dreissel, the last of the Mercedes that was designed by Ferdinand Porsche. For me, Chris, just fantastic car.
SSKL, Super Sport Short Light. Well, it is a super sport. You wouldn't call it short and light. This was the car that battled with the Bentleys at Le Mans in the late 20s, early 30s, and they had mammoth battles with the... We've lost the Mercedes on screen, but just to mention, it's supercharged, and you engage the supercharger by pressing the throttle pedal right down to the floor. It screams and goes faster.
That very Mercedes won the Mille Miglia back in 1931. Now let's go over the Alps, as they say in that part of the world, to catch up with this Alfa Romeo, an 8C Monza. For me, it's just Italian pre-war motor racing.
Yeah, called the Monza because in 1931 won the Italian Grand Prix in the hands of Giuseppe Campari, who was a big operatic character. Look at this. Who can forget when this first appeared at Goodwood? This is the piece de Turin, the incredible land speed record Fiat S76, reconstructed from genuine parts by Duncan Pittaway, who found the chassis in Australia. No one believed that it was the genuine chassis, but it is, and Fiat believed him to the extent that they gave him the engine out of the other car. They built two of these cars, and it's 28 litres, 4-cylinder. Each cylinder is 7 litres. Imagine the size of the pistons on a dustbin going.
Absolutely a dustbin. And in 1911 this car did 116 miles an hour. Just imagine the view that Duncan Pittaway is getting from the driving seat there. The bonnet goes up to the front, so he's literally leaning out of the car, peering over the bonnet to see where the apex is, where the road goes.
Toby, there's a lovely story about it trying to break the record in France, in Belgium. They did a one-way run at 135 miles an hour, should have turned around within the hour and gone back down, but there was a tram line going alongside the road, and the tram driver refused to stop the tram and let them have the second run, so they never got the record.
135 for the first passage.
Can you imagine?
No,
I can't. The tram driver saying, more than my job's worth, mate, to let you run. Here is the fabulous Napier Railton, the Brooklands Outer Circuit record holder, a record that will stay forever at 143 miles an hour, driven by John Cobb, bouncing his way around Brooklands. Brooklands Circuit got incredibly rough.
Here is Hans-Joachim Stuck in the 1936 Auto Union, the C-Type. Look at this, V16, supercharged, 500 horsepower, the twin rear wheels that they put on these cars in their day for his father to drive at the Grossglockner at Shelsley Walsh. It only came 3 times to British soil in its day, once to Shelsley, twice to Donington. Stuckey in the car, he knows the history, he gets the history, he loves this car.
Yeah, quite right too, and his dad came to Shelsley Walsh in 1936, and we remembered that, we recalled that a couple of years ago. Old Mother Gun, Bentley Jackson Special, the mother of all racing Bentleys. Raced at Le Mans in 1927, rebuilt into a single-seater.
1936 car, 4.5-litre straight 8 engine, made regular appearances at Brooklands, and the last car to beat a lap at 130 miles an hour around the Brooklands circuits.
Jochen Maas has been past us in the fabulous W125. There's something that has been dropped on the track. It's an umbrella, so Jochen, mind the umbrella, don't squash the brolly. This is the fabulous example, probably the most monstrous example of the Silver Arrows, that amazing era when the German government funded 2 German teams, Mercedes and Auto Union, in Goodwood racing.
You know, this is the car that you see the picture of yumping out of the Melbourne, the original Melbourne loop at the Donington pre-war. The picture of the car that you see around the Nordschleife that was built only 10, 15 years earlier.
We go back to 1903. We talked about the Collins family, their 60 horsepower simplex Mercedes. Well, here it is with brave driver Gareth Graham, braver passenger. Our Sean Welby rode in this car yesterday. She's a great girl. It's a rapid car, and just imagine 1906. Drive down a dusty road through the village, and they don't expect a car to be approaching 80 miles an hour, and so lots of chickens got run over.
Here is the Wanderer that Tom Christensen caught up with Tom Clarkson in the paddock. Wanderer, part of the Auto Union. It was made up of the 4 manufacturers. It was made up of Audi, of Wanderer, of DKW and Horsch. 9-time Le Mans 24-hour victor Tom Christensen driving one of the founding cars, really, of the Auto Union that made the 4 rings, which is now Audi.
Indeed. Team of these cars raced at Liège-Liège, long distance, and they were rapid. Now, what about this? This is the amazing V16 VR. Amazing, but not successful. Very adventurous, designed by Peter Burton, inspired by Raymond Mays to produce a well-beaten Grand Prix car. 16 cylinders, 1.5 litres, tiny, tiny pistons whizzing up and down, umpteen thousand sparks per minute. No wonder it was a nightmare to make it run properly. It won. Fangio drove it at a Grand Prix in France at Albi. Makes a nice noise though.
Yes, and with that supercharger, 600 horsepower from a 1.5 litre.
Yeah, if you dream of front-engine Grand Prix cars, you're probably dreaming of a 250F Maserati, the fabulous 2.5 litre 6-cylinder Maserati, which took Fangio to a World Championship, that fantastic German Grand Prix in 1957, when he surprised Paul Collins and the Ferraris. They were enjoying themselves, having a bit of fun, and along came Fangio, and he said the red mist descended, and it very seldom did.
I met a couple of years ago the commentator who was at Nürburgring in '57. Yeah, that was quite something. This very 250F, the 1956 Monaco Grand Prix winner with Stirling Moss. Aston Martin.
Yeah, DB3S, the lovely DB3S. Replaced the fairly unsuccessful DB3, gradually got more and more successful. That beautiful body design by Ted Cutting. Look at this, the 2 1.5 litre V6 Dino Sharknose Ferraris. Ferrari had a habit of destroying his Grand Prix cars at the end of the season, and he destroyed all the Sharknose Ferraris. They've been recreated absolutely perfectly, using genuine parts, using the genuine V6 engine, and reminding us of the great world champion Taffy von Tops, who sadly died at Monza, but is our only posthumous world champion.
Now then, let's go on to the Ferrari 158s from 1964. This is the John Surtees car that took the Formula One World Championship that year with victories at the Nürburgring and where else? Monza. Can you imagine what it was like, Chris? You're on the crest of a wave, you're about to win the Formula One World Championship, having come over from motorcycle racing and your success there, and you win at Monza. Life would never be the same again, would it?
No. And John, the great John Surtees, who tragically died a couple of years ago, he loved driving this car. Whew, they come so fast, this fabulous GTO Ferrari of Nick Mason. He's had it for a long, long time. I don't think he will ever not have it. And he took the kids to school in it, drives it on the road, loves it.
The 10/10ths operation headed by Nick Mason and his taste in cars. You just can never argue about it. Well, let's go and catch up with former Le Mans 24-hour victor Martin Brundle. He's driving the Cooper Climax. He drove it here yesterday and getting a feel for what it was like in this era of Formula One. Now having driven, what, 50, 51, maybe even 52 separate different Formula One chassis.
Extraordinary story at the 1958 Argentine Grand Prix when Stirling was driving this car. first rear-engine car to win a post-war Grand Prix, and the Ferrari and Maserati people rather sneered at this little four-cylinder rear-engine car. The tyres were only meant to last 30 laps because a tyre change would take an age. Sterling managed to retain the tyres for 60 laps, finished the race on their canvas, but won the race.
This is the 1954 Alfa Romeo, the 1900 SS. The purity of the lines, the purity of the designs. The designers in those days, Chris, they literally did have just a board, a window, a pencil, a nice coffee,
a hammer, and some aluminium.
Absolutely.
And they had this genius of producing effective but very beautiful body shapes. And there's one as well, the fabulous 250 short wheelbase Ferrari. Sterling Moss won the TT here at Goodwood in Rob Walker's blue one, 2 consecutive years, listening to the radio. And we've just seen Nick Mason's GTO, which followed the 250 short wheelbase. Wonderful cars.
3-litre V12 with this car driven on the road. I can see the Swiss motorway vignettes on the windscreen, and you're minding your own business, going down through the lakes, and then a 250 comes alongside you. Now then, here is a jump into the future, because this is one of the brand new Porsche 911s, reimagined by Singer, who have been working hand in hand with Williams Advanced Engineering and also Marino Franchitti for keeping the outside look and appearance of the very early Porsche 911 from, what I say, the early 70s, but putting on better mechanics underneath, slightly tweaking the aero, because it's now a 4-litre engine in the back of it. It's got a 4-valve head in the back of it, and it's quicker, and it's raughty, and it just excites the soul even to look at it.
It's hard to believe that we've had the 911 Porsche for 55 years, and I think we'll have it forever. Now we're celebrating the Jaguar XK, 70 years of the fabulous XK, led by the open XK 120, with which Ian Appleyard, who was son-in-law of Bill Lyons of Jaguar, won great success in European rallies, won a Coupe des Alpes, which meant doing the complete Alpine rally without any penalty points whatsoever. And he's followed by the hardtop XK 120 that did 7 days at Montlhéry, breaking records there. One of the drivers was Sterling Moss.
C-types, D-types coming up behind the XK 120s. You know, they would drive them from Browns Lane, get on to Le Mans. They would stay at the Hotel de France, and the pictures of them working on the cars, they'd be road registered. That's why they've still got the number plates on. They'd go out, win Le Mans, and drive them back.
C-type, followed by D-type, followed by white D-type, the Border Reivers car, which Jimmy Clark drove, followed by the long-nosed D-type that won Le Mans, followed by the intermittent car, what's the right word, but the halfway house between D-type and E-type, E2A. That's the white and blue one behind the D-type. E2A was effectively a prototype E-type, but they wanted to race at Le Mans. They didn't want it to be a Jaguar Works car in case it failed, so they lent it to Briggs Cunningham. And sure enough, it failed. So they took out the 3-litre fuel-injected engine, put a 3.8 normal engine in, and it was raced in the States by Jack Brabham, by Bruce McLaren, and then it lived in Chipping Campden for a long time. Wonderful. With Guy Griffiths, great photographer, bought it, and Penny Griffiths, his daughter, had it for 20, 25 years, sold it a couple of years ago. BRM, how about that?
We're now moving around with the cars that are coming up the hill here at Goodwood for 2018.
BRM's most successful Grand Prix car, the little jewel of a 1.5-litre V8 Grand Prix car. Richard Atwood has one. I'm not sure who's driving this one, but Jackie Stewart.
Jamie Burgle is driving this Brabham P261 up the hill. It's a demonstration following the whole host of Jaguars that we've seen. As we've mentioned, the C-Type, the D-Type, and and also the lightweight E-Type. There it is at the top of your screen, just...
and a very early E-Type. This is the flat floor E-Type, which I think was the first E-Type to race. Ooh. It's intensive, isn't it, Toby?
It's overload.
Yeah.
It's overload.
I think Jaime Bergel, who's driving the little BRM, is co-owner with Richard Atwood.
So these guys have managed to navigate their way perfectly to the top of the hill where Bruce Jones is.
A mix of cars of all ages. The 1908 Mercedes Grand Prix car, so dynamic, but by the time we got to the early 30s, we'd moved to the world of setting records at Brooklands, and 12.8 litres weren't enough. Alan Wynne, the Napier Elton, a mere 23.9.
Yeah, and you needed that sort of thing for reliability at high speed, and this car eventually became the first to average 150 mile an hour for 24 hours, and for that you need total reliability, doing 3,600 miles in a day, and the big aeroplane engine was the way to do it.
And I gather these days that it doesn't even take a great deal of maintenance.
No, we change the oil every couple of years, clean the spark plugs every so often. We gave it new piston rings 5 years ago. And yeah, it's such a reliable engine. It's a wonderful piece of kit.
Okay, there's the clue. Every household should have a Napier Elton. I'm just going to move around about 3 years later, down from 23.9 litres to something also supercharged, but James Wood, the Alpha P3, just 3.2 litres, but made for a very different purpose to the mighty Napier.
Yes, that's right. It was a Grand Prix car initially developed from the earlier 2.3, 2.6 Alphas, and this one actually went through the 2.9 to 3.2 litres, same straight 8, and after Grand Prix racing went to Indianapolis and did 3 or 4 times the Indy 500. But so it was a very nimble car versus the Auto Union next to it and the Mercedes W125.
Yeah, that was where they were really pushing the boundaries. As you can see, the Auto Union Type C behind you with the double rear wheels, fantastic bit of kit, but they were the teams that had the budgets.
Yes, I mean, there was no, it was an endless budget for them, undisclosed and bankrolled by the government in Germany. So the small teams built by Alfa Romeo and run by Enzo Ferrari and Maserati had to do what they could in the 750 kilogram formula.
Well, they were exciting days, pivotal days, and James, great to see you up the top of the hill. Great to see this gorgeous P3.
Well, it's great to drive it and be here, so thank you.
So that's Bruce at the top of the hill. As we look into the jungle, we look into the forest, we look and see what may appear from the Goodwood countryside, and I have a hunch of what is going to go on, because we've had cars at the top of the hill, we've had cars starting from the bottom of the hill, we've had rally cars that do the tarmac stage and then go on to the gravel stage, we've had the aeroplanes overhead, we've had drones overhead, we have had Jetman, and this is going to be something that we've never seen Goodwood on before, because this is the Ford Raptor. It's coming out of the woods and it's going to make its way onto the stage by literally jumping onto the Goodwood hill climb here. Now this is the all-new Ford Raptor, and there's been a lot of work done behind this car, particularly on the rallies such as the Baja 1000 down in Mexico. It's not just about the trophy trucks and the BJ Baldwins of the world, etc., or the Robbie Gordons. There is all sorts of classes, including a really sort of standard production car class, and this Ford Raptor fits into that class absolutely perfectly. You can go to school in it, you can go shopping in it, and then you could, well, start off mid-season with the Baja 500 before you get to November and do the Baja 1000. The brand new Ford Raptor is right up your street if you want to do that. So jumping out of the forest, across a stage, and now down the Goodwood hill climb. Keep in touch with us here at Goodwood with the hashtag on social media, hashtag FOS, or through Twitter and Instagram with @FOS Goodwoods. Go to the goodwood.com website /FOS. So many digital platforms through which you can keep in touch with us. We do have a team looking at your pictures, keeping in touch with what is going on all around the Goodwood estate here in 2018.
The Will Spencer entered car, the livery of Grease Lightning, the main sponsor of Three Styles Motorsport.
Here is Patrick Freisacker, and if you want to see smoke coming off the rear tyres, you're about to see it with the Red Bull Ring, the Spielberg-sponsored NASCAR, and home to the Austrian Formula 1 and MotoGP races. And Freisacker, normally he's got something in those rear tyres that it changes colour from white to blue to red smoke.
Let's see, in front of the house, Patrick Freisacker then lights up the tyres. And somewhere in all the tyre smoke, there's a car. Brilliant balance on the throttle and the brakes, still smoking.
I think the smoke might be changing colour. Is it going a hint of red, or is it on our screen?
No, it's going a hint of red.
So he's taken the top layer off, and now it's down to red, and then he'll go to the lower layer, and it might be blue, and well, then he's on the carcass, isn't he? Here we go, red smoke coming off the rear of those tyres. Patrick Freisacker, ladies and gentlemen, hustling it around Malcolm.
And back onto the power then as he goes towards the finish line. And then Ed Berry of Chevrolet Monte Carlo should be the next one, but that might need a different driver seeing that to the top of the hill now. So Patrick Freisacker then, still with the smoke coming out of the back. Powers on.
I thought we had the red arrows going over London a couple of days ago. I didn't realise they were coming to the Goodwood Festival of Speed, but great show. We look forward to seeing him again. And likewise, David, you know, these NASCARs are big motor cars. They're big vehicles.
He was arguing with his engineer last week. Behind is Karen Chandhok with the Williams and Patrick Freisacker that we've seen already out today in NASCAR technology. Now has something rather more refined, with apologies to our NASCAR friends, because he's behind the wheel of the Red Bull RB8.
This was the car that took Sebastian Vettel to championship success. He won the championship 4 times on the trot. Did Sebastian Vettel with Red Bull, and put Red Bull, as if they weren't already on the map, well and truly on the map of motorsport history, full stop. You know, they went out and bought another team with Toro Rosso, and a livery that will utterly stand the test of time. They went from the shiny livery, they've now got this matte livery, they've got the partnership with Aston Martin. It's they have utterly moved the goalposts.
In the old days of regularly doing circuit commentary, and you would go through the grid.
Welcome back to another glorious afternoon at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. I tell you what, you couldn't ask for better weather right now. It's been absolutely boiling, but it's about lunchtime, so everyone's now going to queue up, get the dinner at the driver's lounge. We're here in the Martini Gardens, very swanky. Everyone's got a cocktail. I have to say, I'm quite jealous of everybody with their martinis. But you've been having a great time, and we know that because you've been tweeting us. So we're going to have a quick look at what you've been telling us. It's nice to see you're all having a fantastic afternoon. Hello to Ian Giffin, all settled in for some great action. Obviously got a good view there. Very nice indeed. Hello to Victor Pashov, tuning in all the way from Bulgaria. Hello, big fan. Next year he's going to be there. Make sure you get down there, Victor. Very, very good. Loving your tweets. Jetman was an amazing sight, says Charles Manners. I tell you what, if you haven't seen him yet, it's like Iron Man. Unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. Delith Williams. Chances of one of these in my front garden, 3 hours in, and Fos Goodwood, once again, you don't disappoint. That is a spectacular sculpture, and it's very handy to find your way around. It's right near Goodwood House. Hot and sunny for St. Sion. What a beautiful thing it is to be at Fos Goodwood with the family. Nice little selfie there. Keep sending those selfies in. Loving it. Robert Wallace, hello to you. You and Michael Barrett at Goodwood with your specs on, soaking up the sun. Loving life. And hello to James. He's having a great day. He's found the novelty, I think it was a Porsche 911 in Lego. I don't know what it was made of, but there's all sorts to find. It's been a mad day today. And so have a little wander around. Come and say hello if you see me. We still want all your tweets. You know the handle by now is @FozGoodwood. Use the hashtag Foz. And I think it's time to get a cocktail. So back to you guys in the commentary.
It's all right for some, isn't it? The cocktails are flowing. Back to work for us, eh, Martin?
No, I don't want one. Don't worry. You just stay there, Sean. No problem at all. Yeah. Well, actually, noticeable, I was just walking down from the supercar paddock, that quite a lot of grandstands are emptier. Lots of people getting plenty of food and drink inside them. Tom isn't, though. He's still busy working. Somebody has to.
Having a good-looking cameraman like Ed, who's in the controls here, gets you places that you normally can't get. This is the McLaren VIP area. Quite a lot going on over there. It's lunchtime, but also you've got some amazing cars. Look that way, Ed. That is the McLaren Senna. That is 800 horsepower, 1,200 kilos. It's a GT3 car in terms of performance. Absolutely mighty. Bruno Senna loves it a lot. And then you've just got all of McLaren's latest road cars, the 720S here, going right down to the 600 LT, the furthest one you can see here. That's the car that McLaren launched here at the Festival of Speed yesterday. And look at all these people taking an interest. There is such a huge market, such a hunger and a passion for both the McLaren brand and these amazing cars. And, well, thanks to Ed, we're here too.
The rally stage is still busy all day, and if you haven't had a chance to wander up yet, it is well worth it, because you've just seen a glimpse of a TL7 V8. There are Mitsubishis aplenty. There are plenty of Ford Escorts up on the rally stage as well, as we celebrate yet another anniversary here at Goodwood this weekend. And Xavier McCartan and Tony Jardine are enjoying all the action.
Will be one of the longest leapers. He is one of the longest leapers on Collins track.